Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. The previous two videos that I put out were titled Prepping for Sequoia, and this is a follow-on to those two videos. This is about my Mac Pro 5.1 from 2010. Yes, a 15-year-old computer. And these little experiments that I run on it to see if we can keep it relevant and useful 15 years later after it hit the market. So let's talk about the upgrade journey. So I was running macOS Monterey and Windows 11, and both of those were running flawlessly on the 5.1. So what happened was essentially Monterey's reached the end of life. As far as Apple's concerned, Apple has stopped security updates for Monterey. There's not going to be any more updates. It's been, obsoleted by Apple. Ventura, Sonoma, and Sequoia are the supported operating systems now, and other software companies like Blackmagic and Microsoft and other software that I use. Now, if you read their requirements, they want Ventura and higher. Ventura and higher are supported by Apple. That's what software developers are developing for. So I wanted to upgrade. And having a Navi GPU in my computer, I had to give that up. I had to go back to a Vega 56, which as far as and I'm a very light duty gamer, but as far as gaming performance, I was happy with. It was playing all the games I have in my library at decent frame rates. But the power efficiency is not good on the Vega generation. I didn't want to go back to an RX 580 because I want better GPU performance than that. So I went to the Vega 56, and then I found out that Vega 56 doesn't support video coding and decoding hardware acceleration. Now, I did have a viewer write in and say, hey, I have the same MSI card that you have, and I'm running Sequoia on a Mac Pro 5.1, and it works fine. I've not been able to duplicate that, so if there's a secret to unlocking hardware acceleration, let me know. Put it in the comments and let everybody know. But, my own experience is I've even updated OpenCore Legacy Patcher, and I've updated macOS to the latest release. I don't get hardware acceleration. I know that both by video proc and by trying to edit videos and, looking at the lagginess and how long it takes to render a video out. I'm not getting hardware acceleration in my Vega. I can put the RX 580 in. I can get hardware acceleration in that, but then that means I have to accept the performance of an RX 580 in 2025, which is, I want better. So at the end of my most recent video, I just kind of made the decision that I'm just going to run Windows on my Mac Pro. I'm going to forget about macOS. There are only two things that really stretch my machine at all. One is video editing, and it really isn't that much of a stretch. And the other thing is gaming. And of course, games are really designed to take full advantage of your hardware and give you the most performance you can. So with that in mind, with that use case in mind, what is the best GPU? Now, the 5.1 does have an old processor. I have the X5690, which is the fastest single core processor you can put in the Mac Pro, and it's 6 cores and 12 threads. So back in its day, it was a screamer. But in today's standards, it's a pretty slow processor. So how do we work around that to keep the Mac relevant and useful? One way you do that is if you do any video work, sticking to H.264 and H.265 compression, you want to have video compression, encoding and decoding acceleration on the GPU, and make sure you're using that. Of course, there's no problem at all using that in Windows because you're getting all the latest programs and drivers in there that take advantage of what your card has. That's getting to be more and more of a challenge in macOS, keeping everything working. But if I give up on macOS, it opens up the nVidia choices that don't work on macOS. There was a video put out by a YouTuber, 28 All Day, and it was a series of 3 videos, really. In the first one, he put an RTX 4060 in his Mac Pro, and he was using it really strictly as an encoding machine. And that would allow him to use NVIDIA's excellent encoding engines to encode his video. And with the 4060, in addition to H.264 and H.265, he also had AV1 encoding and decoding on there. So he also did a video on gaming performance with the 4060. I looked at that and I looked at what 4060s are selling for. Have you seen the price of new GPUs? You guys know me. I'm not going to buy a new GPU at these prices. So I got started looking at the different used generations and where I wanted to be. And I settled on Turing. I looked for something about the power level, about the performance level of an RX 5700 XT or an RX 5700 or an RX 6600 or 6600 XT. This is what I settled on. This is the Quadro RTX 4000. It's a Turing generation GPU. It slots in right about at the 2060 Super or 2070. On AMD's, it's right equal with an RX 6600. It's an odd choice for a Mac Pro, and it looks kind of funny at first, but actually I'm used to it now, and it's kind of grown on me looks-wise. It has a blower cooler fan, so it takes air in here and moves it to this side of the card, where it has a lot of holes here that the air comes out. I don't know if you can see the holes in the black part, but you can in the silver part. And there are also a couple slots here with even a little high heat sticker there to warn you that this part of the card gets hot when it's running. The PCIe fan is blowing this way, so air is moving through here. If I leave that next blank out here, it lets the air just blow right past here. This fan is going to pull the air in, move it through the cooler, and blow it out there, and that airflow is just going to take the heat right out of the back of the computer. And I've tried that out. I've put my finger on the next card up to see if it gets hot and feel the heat coming out of it. I think that works pretty well. So this card put in the bottom slot of the Mac Pro does move the heat through and out of it pretty well. Look at the card here. We have 1, 2, 3 DisplayPort connections, no HDMIs, and we have a USB-C with the video pass-through. It's the 10 gigabit per second USB-C. If I have anything plugged into it when I boot, and this is exactly the same as the AMD cards that I had with USB-Cs, if I have anything plugged into here, when I boot the computer, I get no display. I just simply have to unplug whatever I have in here, boot the computer up, then I can plug in a hub, I can plug in an SSD, and this is the fastest port on my computer. I do have a USB 3.2, I don't know the USB names now, but anyway, I do have another card for USB, but I still believe this one is the fastest. So anyway, that's kind of handy to have. 8-pin power connector. The TDP of the card, probably won't even focus on that, will it? If I cover my eyes, maybe, yeah. Well, if I cover my eyes, it'll focus. So, yeah, just like an RX 580, yeah, dual mini 6-pin by 8-pin cable, and I can power it from the backplane. TDP on this is 160 watts. That compares with the RX 580, which is 185 watts, so it's less total power than the RX 580. The Vega 56 is 210. I believe the Radeon 7 is 310. The W5700, the Radeon Pro W5700 was, I think, 210. This is 160. So this is less power than anything, but yet the performance is very close to RX 6600 or it's between an RX 5700 and 5700 XT. So yeah, it's comparing them to the cards that I've had, it's probably most similar to the Radeon Pro W5700, which I've gone on record to say is the best card for the Mac Pro. But yeah, I've had this for a couple of weeks now. I've run it through some games. I've run some benchmarks. I'm going to show you all that in this video. And it works really well. It just doesn't run macOS. That's the one thing. Except it does run macOS. So one thing I was worried about is what if I need to do an Open Core Legacy patcher update? I have OCLP on my system. That's what I boot into Windows with. And what if I need to update it? Well, you can boot into macOS with this. I booted into Sequoia, and I booted into Monterey with it. You don't get the graphic acceleration, so your pointer movements are laggy. I tried watching a YouTube video on it, and that didn't work at all. That just froze up. But as far as like doing basic user interface kind of things and utility programs and being able to run Open Core Legacy Patcher and doing an update, yeah, you can do that with this card in. You do get enough display to do that. You just don't get the full driver suite to be able to take advantage of the capability of the card. By the way, the back of it, there's no back plate. On the Mac Pro, that's never been a big thing for me. Actually, on the Mac Pro, I've heard more stories about back plates getting in the way than anything else. It has what I believe is a non-conductive little plate there where that bottom slot goes, so it sits in there and it's fine. The original GPUs for the Mac Pro didn't have back plates on them, so it's fine without those. In the lower left of the picture, I have a kilowatt meter, which is plugged into the tower. So you can see the entire power draw of the Mac Pro tower with the GPU in it, the RTX 4000 on the left, the Radeon Vega 56 on the right for comparison. Really, there's not much difference in idle power draw, but single processor Mac with either of these GPUs is going to draw about that. Switching over to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 308, 312 watts. You can see we're starting out with under 70 frames per second, 60 some. You'll see what resolution and settings here at the end. And then we're going to bring in the Vega 56 again for comparison. So the Vega 56 on the right, the Quadro RTX 4000 on the left. And you see that the FPS, the 4000 is getting about 10 better, maybe 12 better than the 56 throughout here. But really interestingly is the power draw difference, that the RTX 4000 uses 100 plus watts less than the Vega 56 for better performance. So it's really better in that case. You may notice that the left side is hazier looking than the right side. That has nothing to do with the GPUs. That's my OBS settings. So please try to look through that. I messed up the contrast setting, I think, on the left. But anyways, we go through the second part of this benchmark. Each part of the benchmark acts a little differently as you run through it. But again, here we're still seeing a good frames per second increase from the 4000 and 100 plus watts less power draw for the RTX 4000. And as we finish off this section of the benchmark, I want to mention that 28 All Day, the YouTube channel, says that you need enable GOP on your Mac Pro to use these nVidia GPUs. I already have enabled GOP on my Mac Pro, and I didn't have any trouble using these GPUs in Windows. So I would appreciate if a viewer could confirm, like if you have a Mac Pro without enabled GOP and are able to use a Turing or later Turing Ampere or Ada Lovelace GPU without having enabled GOP installed, I'd like to know that. But as far as we know from 28 All Day, it does require the enable GOP BIOS mod on your PC. As we drop into the village here for the last part of the benchmark, the frames per second between the two is not that much different, and that's because this is a CPU bottlenecked part of the benchmark. So this is like where I had an RX 6800 in my system. I'd still get these same frame rates, and it kind of frustrated me because I bought this really expensive high-performance GPU and wasn't, in a lot of parts of the games, wasn't getting any better frame rates. Well, that's what we have here, a CPU bottlenecked part of the game. So in this case, you don't get any better performance no matter what GPU you put in. And we'll go ahead and let this run to the end of the benchmark. All right, let's study these results a little bit. The Quadro RTX 4000 got an average frame rate of 62, where the Vega 56 got an average frame rate of 56. Not that much different. Now, I should mention, I haven't mentioned yet, these are 2560 by 1440 resolution, highest preset. So first of all, round of applause for the old Mac Pro, right? Because 62 and 56 FPS at 1440p highest settings, that's pretty good. So good job for the old Mac Pro for being able to handle that. We actually should be seeing higher performance for the RTX 4000, except that we have some CPU bottlenecking going on. This frame rate, by the way, I love the Shadow of the Tomb Raider frame rate because this really shows us where this bottlenecking is and how it happens. So down here it says GPU bound 41%. This is GPU bound 84%. So what that means is on the RTX 4000, 59% of the time, the CPU or the PCIe slot speed or the RAM is bottlenecking the system. And the GPU is only bottlenecking the system 41% of the time. So let's look at this graph. The GPU is orange, the CPU is green. Anytime the orange line is higher here, it means that the GPU is taking more milliseconds than the CPU to generate the frame. So in this region of the graph that I'm pointing at, the GPU is bottlenecking performance. So if I got a faster GPU, this part of the graph could improve. I could get all the way to here, and then I wouldn't get improvement anymore. However, the other 59% of the graph, where the GPU is already faster than the CPU, there's nothing I can do to improve that. That is a CPU limitation. I do have the fastest CPU in here, the X5690, fastest I can get. So there's really nothing I can do with that to improve that, and a better performing GPU won't help. It'll give me a higher average because it'll improve these areas where the GPU is already slower, but it won't improve the CPU. So looking at the two averages, you know, if I just were looking at this chart and I look at 56 FPS versus 62, I would say, well, it's probably not worth my while upgrading the GPU. That's not enough performance increase to bother upgrading from Vega 56 to RTX 4000. But don't forget the power draw. The power draw was 100 plus watts lower on the RTX 4000. So to me, it's a clear winner. It performs better and it uses less power. Here's the Metro Exodus benchmark. This is at 3440 by 1440 resolution and quality medium, and the total frames, let's see, the average frame rate 59. So almost 60 frames per second, 3440 by 1440, that's an ultra wide resolution. Let's look at Hogwarts Legacy, a modern game that probably has no business being played on the Mac Pro. We'll do full screen, 2560 by 1440, and let's try it out on medium quality preset. So after bobbling at the beginning a little bit, it's kind of averaging around 49-50 frames per second. Lower frame rates when removing. You stand still, it gets up to 55. And we'll pull out a hippogriff here and go flying a little bit. And let's take off. So 45, 49 FPS. I do find that I can get over 50 and even close to 60 if I take the quality settings down to low. So it's kind of a toss-up. Do you want the higher quality, you know, with the medium settings, or do you want the faster frame rate? I think playing it more since I've recorded this, I think I actually like the low quality settings and the higher frame rate better. I think the smoothness is a little better. But see, here as we're flying and up and around, we're even hitting up to 60 FPS. So, you know, for a CPU bottlenecked machine, and you do, if you're watching the GPU percentage, it gets into the 90s, but most of the time it's in the 80%, 70% utilization. So that's where you see that bottlenecking coming in, where the GPU actually has more to give, but something else in the system is bottlenecking it. So I get a little better of that when I'm in low quality settings. Forza Horizon 4 or Forza 4 Horizon, I forget which way it's said. But 3440 by 1440 unlocked, and it achieved 81 FPS, and that is the ultra setting preset. It's a very good. My display only clocks up to 67 Hertz, and that's an overclocked at that, so yeah, that's better than I can even experience. Let's close this video out with a little Microsoft Flight Simulator. That is, of course, the highest and best use of a personal computer. We'll start by looking at the settings. 2560 by 1440 is our resolution. Medium global rendering quality. And scroll down through the rest of the settings. They're mostly on medium. And render scaling, I had this set at 80%. We'll move that up to 100%. So 100% render scaling, we have the option of going lower if we want to improve frame rate, or if we're bottlenecked for the GPU. And let's go flying. Pick a landing challenge, and we'll do the Landa Grande landing challenge. And this one's not around a city. The cities tend to be worse performance on this, or higher bottlenecks. Like if you're flying above New York City, especially if you're low above New York City, it'll really bottleneck the program. But being out in the open country like this seems to be the best performance that Flight Simulator will offer on this Mac Pro. So here we come. Move around a little bit. It always kind of bobbles with performance at the beginning, so give it a few seconds to settle out, and we're holding a pretty steady 53, 54, even 55 frames per second. So this is a very good looking game performance. The trees and everything look really good, even though we're only at medium quality. I'm not sure how much better even higher quality settings would be. But the frame rate is very, very easy to fly with. I see we're down to 48 now. Looks like we have the GPU at 100%. So this is full performance of the GPU. And so maybe render scaling would help a little bit, get the frame rate up some. But I'm happy 52 frames per second all day long flying in Flight Simulator. Let's see when we get closer to the ground if it doesn't get a little more. A little lower frames per second. That usually brings the FPS down. So yeah, here we are coming into the runway, and we're down to 47, 48 FPS, which is fine. And we see the GPU utilization being just completely utilized right here. So this is the full performance of the GPU. And I have to make excuses for my rudder touch here. I'm using a Xbox controller to fly this, so it uses the triggers to control the rudder. It's not the smoothest. But I'm pretty proud of my, hey look, I'm even recording it for a video and I still got an A. That's pretty good for me. I'm going to go ahead and let Flight Simulator play on while I record some audio just for the closeout of this video. I haven't taken a shower or shaved yet, so I don't want to be seen. As far as the price, I haven't talked about the price. These are selling on eBay for about $200 to $220 right now. I paid $210. I watched a couple of auctions go, and they went right around $200. So I may, rather than bid that price up and increase the price for those auctions, I went ahead and offered that to a buy it now seller that had offers enabled. And he came back with the $210, and I wanted to go ahead and get my card, so I agreed to the $210. $210 for this card that's roughly equal to an RTX 2060 or RTX 2070. That's pretty close. They sell for about that. So the penalty for buying a professional Quadro card instead of a consumer RTX card is not that much. It may be $10 or $20 more expensive than you would buy a 2070 or 2060 Super. You know, if you're buying nVidia, it's pretty comparably priced. A lot of people tell you don't buy the Quadro cards, they're way too expensive. And that's true if you buy them new in box. But here's the thing. Most of these cards aren't bought new in the box. They come in workstation PCs. I work for an engineering company. We have probably more than a dozen of these RTX 4000s in Dell Precision pre-built workstations. And that's how I think most of these come onto the market. They'll spend 3 to 5 to 6 years in their initial use case, in our case CAD drawings for construction projects, and then they get sold off and put on the market and as used cards, and that's how you get them. If you buy them new, you're probably paying way too much. But used Quadro cards are not that much more expensive. They're similarly priced, I guess, to their GPS brethren. Another thing, I'm really happy with the card. Do I recommend a Mac Pro owner get this card? Maybe not. Not being able to run Windows not being able to run macOS on your Mac Pro, that's kind of a big deal. You know, you don't really want to, oh, I even got a better score this time. You don't really want to give up your ability to run macOS. So I don't know that I really recommend it. I think an RX 5700 XT or an RX 6600, which has the VBIOS modification, is probably a better all-around pick for most people. You do get the nVidia NVENC acceleration. That's an improvement here, and so that's really the one thing. If you want to use the NVENC for video editing, then I think the Quadro card makes a lot of sense. If you want to use something with CUDA, that of course you can't do on the Radeon, then it can make sense. Otherwise, I think most typical Mac Pro owners are going to want something that can at least run some version of macOS. So with that, thank you for making it to the end of this video. My videos always end up way longer than I intend them to. Hey, you stuck through with the whole video, so thanks for doing that, and thank you for watching, and hope to see you in the future. Goodbye.